Hello and welcome back to the Disciple Makers podcast. Today we have another kind of episode of A Life of Disciple, and technically it's disciples. We've got two guests on today. We've got Dirk and Natalie. Dirk and Natalie, it's nice to have you on today.
It's great to be here.
Good to be here.
So as we get started, just go ahead and give us an introduction of who you guys are, what you guys do.
My name is Dirk Smith. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and addict. I'm a millwright by trade, entrepreneur, always trying to think of something new. Just love God, love being here.
Awesome.
I'm Natalie Smith. I do a little bit of everything, mainly keeping up with Dirk. He keeps me on my toes. He's not joking when he says entrepreneur. He is always coming up with some new project. I quit my job back in 2019, I believe it was, and it was with the intent of just being home for a couple of months and then trying to find something new, and that's kind of how we spiraled into getting the store started and how we got into the homesteading thing, and here we are.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being on the podcast, and we really appreciate that. First thing that I wanted to bring up is kind of how I met you guys, and it was several years ago. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I guess now, and it was at a wedding that I was performing, and Dirk was in the wedding, and I don't really remember a lot of conversations. I think I just said like hi to you, Natalie, and Dirk. I don't remember. I remember like talking a little bit, but not a whole lot, and just kind of getting to know you guys there. And then fast forwarding that now, I've known you for really the last year and a half, 2 years almost, and just getting to know you guys and your friendship, and just been awesome to see what God's been doing in your life, and just amazing. And I know JB's going to say the same thing, and he's going to share some of this too. But a couple things that for you guys just to share. Natalie is our first lady on our podcast, and we're super excited about that. And I know we're going to have more guests and who are ladies, but then Dirk and Natalie are also our first couple. How long have you guys been married?
Oh, goodness.
Oh, sorry.
April 2020.
April 2020. You guys got married during the COVID year.
Yeah, right when COVID first got serious, when they shut everything down.
Okay.
And it didn't impact our wedding because we were originally just going to go to the courthouse.
Right.
And then a couple different people wanted to be there, so we decided to have it at Black Swan Lake. And I think that originally with the two of us and his cousin married us, originally it was supposed to be, I think, 7 people there, and then I think maybe 4 extra people kind of snuck in.
Yeah. We're not going to tell anybody. It's okay.
And, I mean, really the only thing that happened, we were going to have a big reception the next day at Black Swan, and we had to cancel that because of the COVID restrictions and everything. But, it's funny because just a couple days ago, I think it was September 5th, it popped up on my Facebook memories the day that we actually officially met back in 2018.
Yeah,
and
5 years ago.
I mean, we went to the same high school, and there were 25 people in that high school, and he was a year ahead of me, and we never interacted. We never once spoke, anything like that. And then we meet when I moved back up here, and turns out 90% of his best friends were from my graduating class. And it's funny how God works, because, I'm also a recovering alcoholic, and he brought us together when we were both in our sobriety already, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing about that, and I know you guys are both, so proud of your sobriety, and you should be, and I know you've used that a lot in your life to share with other people to help them, and kind of that tree goes on and on of how many people that you could talk about that you've been able to share what God's done in your life. But how many years have you guys been sober now?
I will be 6 years in February.
I'll be 7 in December.
That's awesome. And so through your whole marriage, you guys have been sober together and just loving Jesus, and that's awesome. That is so awesome. I got one more thing, and I'm going to let JB step in, is, One of my favorite things about your wedding is you had posted a picture, Natalie, and Dirk is wearing the coolest jacket. He's wearing this bright orange like jacket, just like he walked in there and he owned the place, you know?
Absolutely.
And
$4 from Goodwill.
hey, there you go.
Still had tags on it. It was brand new.
That's perfect.
And
Yeah.
it's funny because he wanted to wear bibs to the wedding. And I said, sure, go for it. And I think that maybe I've seen him out of bibs 30 times since then. It's just.
Yeah, I love my bib overalls.
Yep.
Business pants.
Business pants.
There you go. I like it.
That's Dirk.
That's
You ain't got Dirk if you ain't got bibs, right?
Right.
That's right.
And if we go out and he's not in his bibs, he usually gets a comment about it.
Yeah, I get called out a lot.
I'm surprised there were COVID restrictions on Black Swan,
Holcomb shut the whole
Yeah.
state down a week before our
Yeah.
reception.
Wow.
And yeah, we were wanting to have. There
That's
probably would
crazy.
have been anywhere from 300-400 people.
Yeah.
Dirk knows everybody in Jackson County, so
Yeah.
So, did you guys ever have a reception?
kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
My aunt.
his aunt planned a surprise reception for us.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay.
What was that? 2 years ago,
Probably.
something
Maybe.
like that.
I don't remember.
I think 2 years ago.
I'd have to go look. for some
And it
pictures.
was under the guise of a family reunion, a small little family reunion. And boy, I did not want to go that day. I didn't want to do anything. And we walk in, and we were the last ones there, obviously. And I walk in the room first, and everybody stands and they're clapping. And what is going on? I didn't know.
She thought I had something to do with it.
I gave him the look.
That's
But it was
awesome.
really cool and totally unexpected.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so like I was talking to my family this week about having you guys on the podcast and stuff, and I know that you know my family real well. So, how did that all come about? When did you first meet, like my dad and my brothers and stuff like that?
Well, actually, your brother Jason
Yeah.
was a year or two younger than I was.
Yeah.
And I'd been out to your house with him
Yeah.
when you
yeah.
were just little.
Yeah.
And then, time in life, there was a gap there. And then through the I'm a millwright by trade. And I was working a shutdown, and I got told that they might be interested in hiring another person. So I reached out, and one thing led to another, and I worked for your dad for probably 3 months before
Yeah.
he moved on.
Yeah.
And then that's when I got to know David, and I'm going to go ahead and tell that story because it's just beautiful.
Yeah,
I love
Yeah.
it.
Go ahead.
But I was sitting in David's office one day and giving him a hard time about coming to church here. And, we was just giving him a hard time about it. And, we're like, you're just there to impress Tony. And he goes, Dirk, I ain't going to lie to you. I went to church because Tony asked me to go. Now I go because I love it. And he looked at me and he said, when the time is right, I'm going to ask you to go. And, I just shrugged it off. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. Unfortunately, David's passed away, and he never got to see me come into church. And the first day when I come into the church, I knew that this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
a beautiful story.
Oh,
it
it is.
really is. And so like Jeremy was on our podcast last, and the reason I asked that question was because I know you and Jeremy both knew me kind of before I knew you, because
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah,
a
you
little
was little.
squirt, and so I don't remember as much about that or anything, but I think it's awesome how my whole family knows you too, and they talk highly of you and stuff, and man, and David was an awesome guy.
Oh, absolutely.
I grew up around, because my dad and him worked together for so long. We always went over to his house. He had an annual pig roast and stuff. Man, that was awesome, So I grew up out there. And then you guys, we actually live on technically the same road.
Yeah.
And so, I grew up out in that area and just Black Swan, and I've got some friends that live right next to it. So I feel like there's a lot of common ground there, some good stories to talk about. So.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to talk about all that.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. Some of them probably used as a testimony for some people.
There we go. There we go. You know, and Dirk, you brought this up, the story, you know, you coming to church, and, you know, that's been a while ago now, you know, a couple years. And, you know, you and Natalie kind of came into church, and I remember, and you guys can elaborate on this more if you want to, but I remember that when you guys kind of started, that you were kind of in the back, like you were in the, like, hey, we're here, but we're kind of like hiding out, like, how can we get out of here quick? Like, maybe Natalie had scoped out all the exits and like, hey, where do I, you know, but I remember, I don't know if it was the first or second time that you guys were here, instantly, you know, we all know this about Dirk. He knows everybody, right, Natalie?
Absolutely.
And so there was lots of people who knew him, excited for him to be here and to talk to him. And of course, Dirk wants to talk to all of them. And I remember him talking to Tony and some other people that we all know, and doing that. But in that, you know, time period of you guys coming here, there's been a lot that's happened. You know, a lot that's happened, and part of that is, you know, you guys fully surrendering your lives to Jesus and getting baptized in this church. And to me, that was one of the coolest baptisms, because you guys have some friends, Brian and Tanya, and Dirk, Brian baptized you, and then Natalie, Tanya baptized you, and you know, and then now to see you guys. I know where you sit every Sunday, and you sit on the second row.
Second
row from the right.
Second row, and so that's just really cool, you know, to see all that and see how God's worked over the last several years. And, you know, is there anything that you guys want to just share about that, or about that experience, the baptism, or anything, you know, or just Tanya and Brian sharing with you, or the people in the church, you know, making you feel comfortable to where you don't have to look for the exits, you know?
Well, it's funny because I didn't grow up going to church. I would go to church every now and then with a friend. This was when I lived in Alabama, so I was 9, 10. And Dirk and I had talked about, you know, eventually getting into a church, and he had mentioned that it was something that he wanted to do. And I was kind of just on the sidelines about it, just because I didn't have that in my past, you know. And when Tanya and Brian invited us, we came, and I still wasn't sold on it. It's gotten a lot better, but a lot of times I get anxiety around a lot of people, and this is a big church. There were a lot of people there that day.
Right.
But it was, I don't know. It was within the week. It was a few days later. Dirk was at home, still asleep. I was outside doing my chores, feeding my rabbits, and Marvin pulls in, and he had brought some, was it Amish bread, I think?
Something like that.
Something like that. And we just got to talking, and, you know, he just wanted to welcome us and everything, but we really didn't talk about church at all. We just talked about 5-10 minutes just about some random stuff. And, you know, when he left, I went in and I told Dirk, I said, okay, I want to start going to church on Sundays. And it was like an instantaneous, it felt right, it all clicked. And just the fact that he took time out of his day to come and to our house, you know, and really welcome us. I mean, that went such a long way, and that it continues every single day. I mean, you can walk up to anybody in this church and feel welcome, I think.
Yeah.
Like, you smile at somebody, they give you a big smile back, and I don't doubt that if we needed something, if we needed help, there's not a person in this church that wouldn't offer to help without hesitation.
Yeah.
And I just love it. And, you know, going back to when I was in Alabama, I did get baptized, but it was kind of just on the urging of my friend. Like I said, I was 9, I was 10. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And just to be able to be with the church and make that decision on my own that I wanted to commit my life to Christ, it's just an amazing feeling.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's so awesome. And I love that you brought up about our friend Marvin, because I've known Marvin for several years now, and Marvin's not a minister, he's not a church leader, he's not on staff or anything like that. He's just a man who loves Jesus and loves to go and to share Jesus and to talk to people and let them know that he loves them, and Jesus does too. And, him and his wife have had a great ministry here at the church to reach out to people. And there's a lot more people that could say that exact same story of what you said. But to me, it's just awesome that, he made that drive out there, and it was just to welcome you and let you know, like, hey, we care about you.
Right.
And there was no, like, hey, come to church. This,
Right.
It was just, we care.
Absolutely.
And that's an awesome story. And I think that just, it reminds me of something that I've heard for years from, an old preacher used to say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And, that to me is just a great example of that and how it had an impact on your life, you know?
I mean, it was... I kind of, after he left, before I went inside, I kind of looked up at the sky and I said, well played,
Yeah, that's awesome. Because, you look back, a lot of times we don't see God working in the moment. And then,
Right.
afterwards, we're like, man, he set that up, And I'll go ahead and share this story that just happened, let's see, not yesterday, but the day before. For those listening, they know I coach football. Well, I was at practice, and tensions were high, and our players were messing up. So all of us coaches, we weren't very happy or anything, and so we're yelling at our players. Well, next thing you know, us coaches, it's hard when you're yelling at a player to switch it off, and so we turn to talk to each other. And then we yell at each other. And so I got yelled at by another one of the coaches, and let's just say I did not react well. I mean, my biggest thing, I've talked about it on this podcast before, is my anger. That's something I struggle with. Most of the time I keep it at bay when I'm out and about, and then I go home and I try to work out and I try to take it out that way, stuff like that. Well, I didn't handle it. I blew up. And I was saying some vulgar language, and I was not very happy. And the funny thing is that after that, I come to the church, and I'm supposed to be teaching the high schoolers, and I have a lot of my players in there. And the lesson is about being more like Jesus. But it worked perfect because I was like, boys, I was like, I'm not here to try and act like I'm perfect. I'm not perfect. If I was perfect, Jesus Christ wouldn't have had to go on that cross, And so I was like, an hour ago, I did not show you guys Christ, did I? I was like, I did not. I was like, he gave me an opportunity and I failed. But to think that, I pray to God about helping me with my anger. He gave me an opportunity. I failed. He knew I was going to fail, and he knew what that lesson was going to be about, what I was supposed to have to teach on,
Right.
And so it's awesome just kind of after the fact to look and see what God has set up, and it actually sparked great conversation with the players, because I was like, I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I'm a sinner, I'm saved by the grace of God. I'm going to be honest, I did not react well there. I'm not going to always react well. I'm going to mess up every day. And so then when I went into asking them questions and stuff, they were really open and honest, and it was awesome, just kind of the way God worked through all of it, and and for those listening to me and those coaches were fine. It's like, it's not like that's one thing that's difficult when you're a player to realize is, a lot of times practice is intense and stuff, but afterwards it's fine, and as coaches and stuff, sometimes we'll get heated and get intense, but 30 seconds later we're fine.
Yeah,
and a lot of the times, sometimes we're more intense with the players, and we're not really that upset. We're just trying to make it intense, to try and push them harder and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a funny way that it all worked out, and I talked to the coaches about it the next day, and they were like, "See, we helped you with the Bible study,"
Taking some credit.
Yeah.
You bring that up, Justin, and it kind of made me think of some scripture in John chapter 13. John chapter 13, Jesus is kind of talking about his betrayal and how Judas is going to betray him and all this stuff, and there's going to be one that betrays him, and what's going to happen when the Son is lifted up and glorified. And then he gives a new commandment. He says to love one another as I've loved you. And then you get to verse 36, and I'm going to read 36 through 38. And this is Simon Peter. And what I've always appreciated about Simon Peter is that he was a fisherman, He wasn't like the super educated guy. He wasn't the super eloquent person, but he has just a heart for the Lord. And there's this moment where he struggles, and there's lots of moments where it's recorded in Scripture where he struggles, and yet God works through that. And I think all of us in this room would say we've struggled at some point. We're struggling now, maybe. You know, for those that don't know, we do this podcast pretty early in the morning.
That's true.
And that may be a struggle for Dirk a little bit this morning. This is with his work schedule and everything.
Don't worry, me too, Dirk.
But you know, Simon Peter, I just listened to this in chapter 13, verse 36. Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus answered, "Where I go, you cannot follow me now, but you shall follow later." Peter said to him, "Lord, why can I not follow you right now? I will lay down my life for you." Jesus answered, "Will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, a cock shall not crow until you deny me 3 times. And so that popular verse of the rooster crowing 3 times, that when Peter denies Jesus right before he's crucified. And, you know, reading the Scripture and studying the Scripture before, it makes me realize that Peter was saying, listen, I'm going to lay down my life for you. He had the best intentions. He loved Jesus. He cared about Jesus. And he said, listen, I'm going to lay down my life for you. But here's the thing. Jesus knew that he was going to have times where he struggled. He was going to mess up. He was going to fall. And Peter was all in for Jesus at some moments, and the next moment he said something he shouldn't, or he did something that he shouldn't. Just like when he's supposed to be in the garden praying, and they come to take Jesus by force, and he cuts off a guy's ear. The guy's name's Malchus, and I always thought that was a cool name, you know. But Peter cuts off this guy's ear, and Jesus is like, whoa, don't do that, you know. He puts the guy's ear back on, heals him, but in this moment, you know, you see Jesus having to tell Peter, hey, listen, you're going to mess up. It can't be based on what you can do. And I think that's something that we all have to look at and think about is, you know, when we fall, when we mess up, where do we get out of that? You know, how do we come back out of that, and how do we, you know, work through that? Because all of us are in a process of learning and growing and trying to figure out how to live better for Jesus. And it's not always going to be a road that is easy. Sometimes it's going to be a little rocky. Sometimes it's going to be a little difficult. Sometimes we're going to try to sway off the path, you know. I always think of it like this. Have you guys ever had a car that maybe like the alignment was off and it pulled to the right or the left a little bit? And I think sometimes like we're like that our nature or our past sometimes can pull us to like the right or the left a little bit. And, you know, depending who we get around or what happens. But like you said, Justin, is, you know, God knows, and even God can use our mistakes and our past in ways to redeem and to, you know, share His love and His greatness, you know. Something you guys mentioned a little bit earlier is, you know, you guys Homestead, and you guys have a channel on YouTube, and I'll let you talk about that, but where you guys do that called Mama Bear's Homestead and More. And one of the things on that homestead that you guys do that I love is Dirk has these moments of his, you know, Papa Bear time, and he just shares things that he's learning or things that he's reading or things from church or whatever, something just to do about God, what God's teaching him. And, you know, there's a lot of people who are watching your channel, and I'm one of them. Justin's one of them. My kids are one of them, you know. Lots of people who are watching that, and I think that's just a great witness to God of like, hey, I don't have it all figured out, I don't know, but this is what I'm learning, this is what I'm doing. How did you guys start your channel, and how did that all take place?
Well, I think it was Dirk's dream initially to get the YouTube channel started, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that'd be cool. It was, 5 months after we bought our GoPro that we finally sat down and recorded our first intro video.
Yeah, I was way on board way before Natalie. Like I said earlier, I'm an entrepreneur. And, I was looking for another source of income to get rid of my job. I want to be self-efficient as much as I can. So I'm like, hey, if we try to work hard at this YouTube thing, maybe that could be our income. And, that was always the goal.
But then we started doing it, and we just enjoyed it so much. And we had, when people would reach out and say, hey, I love watching your channel, or hey, I learned this. I mean, we said probably after, the third or fourth video that we didn't care if we ever made a dime off of it. And it was one day after church, Dirk told me, he said, hey, I think I want to do a Real Talk with Papa Bear. And that's just kind of how it started with doing that. He shoots that after church every Sunday, and it airs every Monday. And it's become probably one of his favorite parts of the channel. He gets really pumped up about doing it.
That's awesome. That is awesome, man. And so how long ago did you guys start the YouTube channel? When would that have been?
January 25th.
25th
of this year.
Okay.
This year.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I remember watching the first episode where you guys were like on your couch in your house or whatever, and just kind of describing it, and then how much it's changed, and from you guys sharing about your bunnies, rabbits, and your bees, and Dirk and the fixing the tractor, and then fixing the tractor again, and then fixing the tractor again.
Burning.
and the funniest ones for me that I really get a kick out of is the road trips, and there was one that Dirk shot, and it was on a Sunday. I remember because we had a friend who was getting baptized. Our friend Brian was baptizing another guy, and it was a friend of Dirk's, a guy that we all know and love his family, and Dirk did a recording on the drive there. Set up the GoPro in the car and did that, and it was just cool because he ended it right at the church right before the baptism, and it was just a cool thing. And now, those Papa Bear, Real Talk with Papa Bear, there's lots of people that are watching those and are being touched. And I told Dirk that I would try to not have so many complicated names in all the sermons from now on.
He asked yesterday or last night when I was telling him about the intro to the Daniel class, he said, did you talk about King Nevermind?
Hey, that works. If you can remember it that way, as long as you get the story, right?
Yeah. It was the pastor at Central Christian at the fair booth.
Yeah, Tyler.
Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, I have trouble with that too. Just make up a name and act like you're friends with them. And I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to go with that, but no, I mean it is. There's a lot of tough names in the Bible, and even for me, that there's sometimes that I have to look them up and figure out on YouTube or wherever it is on how to pronounce them. And some people pronounce some of them differently. And I remember like the book of Philemon that's in the New Testament, that there's some people, have called it Philemon and just different names. And, but yeah, I mean, I just love it. But man, the thing about the Real Talk with Papa Bear that I love is just your heart in it, that just everybody can see that it's just you sharing what God's doing. And, you've had some guests on there,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And had some people help you and did it at different places in the, I know you did it in your home because your neighbor was out cutting grass one day or something, and you've done it outside a lot. And but just sharing that and getting it out there, I think that's a huge thing. And one of the things that you guys did a video this summer at the fair, and you ran into Justin, and you were like, hey, here's one half of the Disciple Makers podcast, and that was just super cool for you guys to do that, and just to share that, with everybody. I think that's just an awesome thing. And for me, one of the other things, and I'll let Justin, I know he's got some things, but for me is there's lots of people that you guys know that some of that we're not going to come in contact with through the homesteading community and through just friends and stuff. And that's one way that you can be a disciple maker, is just sharing what you're learning at church, what you're learning in your Bible reading, whatever it is, and sharing that with those people on that channel, because some of them, as you know, probably aren't Christians, or maybe don't go to church, or maybe they're trying to figure it out, or trying to, and you just have a chance to encourage them.
Hey guys, this is Justin, and we're going to cut the podcast right here. This is about 30 minutes in. This is going to be part 1 with Dirk and Natalie. Mitchell just talked about how they can disciple through their YouTube channel and through the homesteading. And when we come back, we're going to pick up with Dirk and Natalie talking about, the followers that they have gained on their YouTube channel because of their, Real Talks with Papa Bear, and talking about God more on that channel. And so we hope you guys like this episode, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, and be blessed.